1954. A slightly chilly bathroom in a Chicago suburb, just before 6 in the morning. The pale light catches the edge of a heavy porcelain sink. A mother stands before a fogged mirror, holding a simple bar of white soap and a stiff cotton washcloth. You can hear the sharp rush of cold water hitting the basin and smell the crisp, unapologetic scent of plain cleanliness filling the small room. But the strange part is this. There were no plastic bottles on her counter, no expensive serums, no 12-step routines. The women with the strictest standards of cleanliness owned the fewest products. Yet the fresh scent they carried is something modern industries have spent billions trying to recreate. They were not just washing, they were following a quiet, rigorous discipline. These are 15 unspoken hygiene rules every 1950s woman knew. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. Today, our bathroom cabinets overflow with plastic bottles and complicated, expensive routines. But in the 1950s, hygiene was less about buying products and more about possessing a specific kind of knowledge. These unspoken rules did not vanish because they stopped working. They disappeared because the modern industry realized you cannot continually sell a habit that costs almost nothing. What vanished was not the desire to be clean. It was the quiet discipline passed down from mother to daughter. As we count down these 15 forgotten practices, you will see how true cleanliness was maintained before everything became disposable. Keep watching until we reach number 1, because the final rule on this list is not just about washing, it is about the very foundation of a woman's dignity. And the countdown begins exactly where most mornings used to start, right at the edge of the wash basin. Number 15. The daily washcloth discipline. In an era before chemical exfoliants, acid peels, and plastic loofahs lined every shower shelf, a 1950s woman relied on something far more rigorous, a stiff, white cotton washcloth. This was not a gentle, luxurious glide over the skin. It was a firm, deliberate scrubbing. When paired with a heavy bar of basic lye or ivory soap, the rough texture of the terry cloth provided a slight, invigorating sting that stimulated blood circulation and scrubbed away the day's grime. The washcloth was wrung out tightly, leaving the skin flushed, glowing, and deeply clean. This practice was never viewed as a spa-like pampering session. It was a daily discipline, a practical method of physical maintenance that kept women radiant without a single drop of expensive body wash. Number 14. The talcum powder finish. Stepping out of the bath, the routine was far from over. Before a woman could even think about slipping into a tightly structured girdle or corset, she had to be completely, flawlessly dry. Enter the large tin of talcum powder. Wielding a plush, oversized powder puff, she would dust herself in a fragrant, soft white cloud. You could smell the distinct, powdery sweetness lingering in the hallway, long after she had left the room. Today we slather on heavy lotions that leave us sticky, but in the mid-century, dampness was the absolute enemy of foundation garments. The powder absorbed lingering moisture, ensuring that silk and nylon slipped on effortlessly. It was less about fragrance and more about engineering the perfect dry base for the day's armor. Number 13. Boiling the linens. Cleanliness extended far beyond the body. It was woven into the very fabric a woman wore next to her skin. Walk into a 1950s kitchen on a Tuesday morning, and you might find a large enamel pot simmering on the stove. But it was not soup. It was her family's cotton underwear and washcloths. Instead of relying on harsh, fabric-destroying chemical bleaches, women boiled their daily linens with shaved soap to sterilize them completely. The kitchen would fill with the heavy, clean scent of hot, wet cotton and rising steam. By taking control of the temperature, they killed bacteria and kept whites blindingly bright. The kitchen was not just a place to cook. It was a domestic laboratory where hygiene was fiercely protected. Number 12. The baking soda tooth routine. Long before drugstore aisles offered 50 different flavors of minty, brightly colored toothpaste gels, many women trusted something much simpler sitting right in their baking pantry. A small glass dish of baking soda, sometimes mixed with a pinch of salt, served as the ultimate dental care. Dipping a wet, stiff, bristled toothbrush into the gritty white powder, yielded a salty, slightly bitter taste that modern consumers might find shocking. But the result was undeniable. The mild, abrasive, polished away stains from black coffee and tea, neutralizing acids and leaving the mouth feeling purely, fundamentally clean. They did not need artificial sweeteners to mask poor hygiene. They relied on basic, inexpensive chemistry. And once you notice how many of these tricks involved absolutely zero packaging and required only items from the kitchen pantry, the larger truth becomes hard to ignore. These women were not dependent on corporations to tell them how to be clean. They possessed a self-reliance that transformed ordinary, cheap objects into powerful tools of personal care. But the morning washing was just the baseline. The next group of rules moved away from the sink and into the bedroom, where maintaining that hard-won freshness required an entirely different, unspoken set of skills. Number 11, airing out the bed. Before the invention of chemical fabric refreshers or artificial room sprays, removing the stale scent of sleep required nothing but time and a cracked window. A 1950s woman did not immediately make her bed upon waking. Instead, she threw the heavy cotton sheets and wool blankets all the way back over the footboard. She opened the bedroom window, letting the crisp, often freezing morning air sweep across the mattress. For at least 30 minutes, the bed was left to breathe, evaporating night sweat and neutralizing odors. It was a quiet exercise in patience. Modern convenience tells us to spray away the smell of a closed room, but they knew that true freshness could not be poured from an aerosol can. It had to be invited in from the outside. Number 10, the weekly hair wash. Step into a modern shower, and you will likely see a daily ritual of lathering and rinsing that strips the scalp bare. In the mid-century, however, washing one's hair was an event, usually reserved for a Friday or Saturday night, and never a daily afterthought. Water was kept strictly away from the hair during the week, protected by tight, crinkling plastic shower caps. This was not a matter of laziness, it was deliberate household intelligence. By allowing the scalp's natural oils to remain undisturbed, women avoided the chronic dryness that plagues modern hair. They did not need a rotating cast of hydrating masks because they simply did not destroy their hair's natural defenses in the first place. Number 9, the 100-stroke brushing habit. Because they washed their hair so infrequently, daily maintenance required a different kind of labor. Enter the vanity mirror, a boar bristle brush, and the rhythmic, repetitive sound of the 100-stroke rule. Every evening, a woman would sit down, unpin her hair, and brush it rigorously from the root down to the very ends. This was often a quiet, inherited ritual, a daughter sitting on the rug between her mother's knees, learning the rhythm of the stroke. The stiff bristles picked up the natural oils produced at the scalp and distributed them evenly down the hair shaft. It was not vanity, it was manual conditioning. They were doing by hand what we now pay top dollar for in a salon treatment. Number 8, the vinegar hair rinse. When wash day finally did arrive, the ultimate step rarely came from a commercial bottle. It came from the kitchen. Because basic lye soaps often left a dulling residue on the hair, women used a diluted splash of white or apple cider vinegar as a finishing rinse. The sharp, acidic tang would briefly shock the bathroom air, cutting through the heavy soap scum and snapping the hair cuticles tightly shut. Though the sour smell vanished the moment the hair dried, it left behind a blinding, reflective shine that no modern silicone serum can truly replicate. It was a perfect piece of domestic chemistry. By this point, the pattern is no longer just about bodily hygiene. We are seeing a profound level of resourcefulness, where stillness and patience did the heavy lifting instead of a credit card. But as we move closer to the top of our list, the routine steps away from the vanity mirror and opens the closet door. The next few rules were not just about personal grooming. They were about how a woman managed her wardrobe, and ultimately how she carried herself through the world. Number 7, the armpit shield, dress shields. Before the era of cheap, fast fashion that could be casually tossed into a washing machine after a single wear, clothing was a serious investment. A 1950s woman rarely washed her tailored wool suits or structured day dresses. Instead, she relied on a brilliant, nearly forgotten piece of hygiene engineering, the dress shield. These crescent-shaped pads of soft cotton, sometimes backed with a thin layer of rubber, were carefully pinned or stitched directly into the underarms of a garment. They silently absorbed sweat and heavy deodorants throughout the day. At night, she would simply unpin the small shields and wash them in the sink, keeping the dress itself completely pristine. It was an act of profound respect for her belongings, preserving the fabric and extending the garment's life for years. What looks small from the outside often carries the heaviest logic. These women understood that true cleanliness was not just about scrubbing the body, it was about the rigorous, disciplined management of the things they owned. Number 6. Lemon juice for hands and nails. That unyielding resourcefulness followed her straight back into the kitchen. After chopping onions or handling pungent garlic for the evening roast, a mid-century housewife did not reach for an expensive, artificially scented hand cream to mask the odor. She reached for the leftover half of a squeezed lemon, rubbing the acidic, bright pulp directly into her fingertips and cuticles not only neutralized the stubborn food smell, but also naturally bleached her nails. The citrus acid removed dull yellow stains, leaving her hands looking perfectly manicured and smelling sharply clean. It was a seamless transition from a working cook to a polished hostess, achieved right at the sink with a kitchen scrap that would otherwise be thrown away. Number 5. Undergarment rotation. Even the items hidden entirely from view required a strict, methodical attention. A proper 1950s woman knew the unspoken rule of undergarment rotation. The heavy, highly structured girdles and bullet bras of the era were woven from thick, elastic, nylon, and wire. They were never, under any circumstances, worn 2 days in a row. After a long day of wear, the garment was gently draped over the back of a chair or a wooden drying rack to let the fibers air out, rest, and naturally snap back into their original shape. This was not merely a laundry tip, it was a quiet standard of living. She knew that if she took care of the garment's foundation, it would hold her properly the next time she wore it. Number 4. The cold water splash. When it came to her own face, the most powerful tool for maintaining a firm, youthful complexion was absolutely free. Long before ice rollers and high-tech cryotherapy became trendy, expensive salon treatments, our grandmothers relied on the brutal, shocking simplicity of the cold water splash. Every morning, and again before bed, she would lean over the porcelain basin and splash freezing cold water onto her face 15, sometimes 20 times in a row. The intense temperature shocked the skin awake, tightening pores, reducing morning puffiness, and forcing the blood to rush to the surface, creating a vibrant, natural flush. It required zero packaging, just a deep breath and a bracing tolerance for the cold. The closer we get to number 1, the less this list is about removing dirt or preserving fabric. These final rules are no longer just habits. They were quiet standards repeated day after day until they became the very foundation of her character. Number 3, pin curls and scalp breathing. Every evening before the bedroom lights went out, a distinct, soft, metallic click echoed in homes across America. Women did not rely on blistering hot irons that fried the hair shaft for the sake of a temporary wave. They used the slow, deliberate method of pin curls. Section by tiny section, damp hair was rolled flat against the scalp and secured with steel bobby pins. Sleeping on a head full of metal clips required a specific kind of stoic endurance, a slight pinch against the pillow that women simply accepted as part of the routine. But this nighttime ritual had a dual purpose. It allowed the scalp to breathe and the hair to set naturally overnight without devastating heat damage. Modern styling relies on instant gratification in damaging tools, demanding constant chemical repair. The mid-century woman simply used time, letting the quiet hours of sleep do the heavy lifting. Number 2, perfume on the pulse points. Only when it came to fragrance, the 1950s woman understood the immense power of restraint. Today, perfume is often sprayed in heavy, overwhelming clouds that announce a person before they even enter a room, lingering aggressively long after they leave. But back then, perfume was meticulously applied, never sprayed. Using the glass stopper of a small, heavy crystal bottle, she would dab a single drop onto her pulse points, the inside of the wrists, the base of the throat, and the delicate hollow just behind the ear. The natural warmth of the blood diffused the scent slowly. It was a rule of absolute elegance. Fragrance was meant to be a whisper, an invitation to step closer, never an invasion of someone else's space. It was the hygiene of presence. And now we reach the final rule, the one that explains all the others. Number one is the reason these habits still feel deeply personal decades later. The final rule was never just about a product or a routine. It was about what happened inside a woman's mind. Number one, the cleanliness of the unseen. If you stood in a quiet hallway and watched your mother or grandmother working under the warm glow of a kitchen light, standing by the ironing board or the porcelain sink, you would notice something profound. She spent just as much time scrubbing, boiling, and pressing the clothes that no one else would ever see. She would meticulously scrub the inner collar of a blouse. She would iron the lace hem of a cotton slip that was destined to be hidden entirely beneath a heavy wool skirt. She polished her shoes so thoroughly that even the leather just above the heel was spotless. Why? Why expend so much energy on the invisible? Because for the 1950s, woman cleanliness was not a performance for the outside world. It was an internal standard. It was the deep, unshakable belief that you deserved to be clean, down to the very seams of your undergarments, regardless of your wealth or your social standing. It was not vanity. It was armor. It was the quiet dignity of knowing your foundation was flawless, even if you were the only one who knew it. The bar of soap, the stiff washcloth, the perfectly rotated girdle, these were just the physical objects. The real lesson was the invisible discipline around them. And as a daughter watched from the doorway, the knowledge was passed down without a single word being spoken. Today, we fill our bathroom cabinets with plastic bottles that promise convenience and instant results. But in doing so, we lost something far more valuable than just an old bar of soap. These hygiene rules did not vanish because they failed. They disappeared because the modern industry realized it could not sell patience, discipline, and self-reliance. What truly vanished was the quiet, generational knowledge, the unspoken standards passed from mother to daughter. Somewhere, if you close your eyes, you can almost hear the sharp rush of cold water hitting a heavy porcelain sink. You can smell the crisp scent of talcum powder lingering in the hallway. Somewhere, a mother is still standing before a fogged mirror, silently teaching the enduring lesson of dignity. What is an old-fashioned hygiene rule your grandmother taught you that you still use today? Share your memories in the comments below. If you found value in this journey back in time, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the video on your screen to discover more forgotten secrets of the past.